of the higher prices with all of the wheats and the whole grains and the additional produce needed and the larger amounts of healthy fresh fruits and vegetables. Right now, the profitability of the operations is running in a profit, but a very slim one. Food service has experienced a drop in revenue during January and February, which we all know was due to the lack of school during the terrible winter months. The expenditures and the direct costs are still lower than the revenue coming in. Once the indirect costs are added into the revolving account, it has teetered and slipped into the red for a short time. The percentage of money that is actually deducted from the revolving account is much too high. We need to monitor the indirect costs much closer to make sure that we meet the state's guidelines and their expectations. The food service program uses many ways to watch the finances. One way that has been very profitable has been in part by using the government commodities available to the program and by working with a collaborative on bids for grocery, milk, bread, ice cream, and paper and plastic products. The costs of these products are much lower, and we would not be able to do it without this. Now on to the survey that everybody has seen. As far as the results, we got 60 from the high school, 66 results from the Pearly, and 78 from the Pembroke.
83. Where's 83?
83 from middle school.
8.
That must have been the final.
Oh, okay. Oh, at the final. I thought the tally that we had at that time was. Oh, well, that's good. I'll have to check those one out also. But in the meantime, I did sort of just take my view of it. And it looks like the majority of students do purchase lunch most days or occasionally, which were the top two choices that they had to make. And it is definitely agreed that the Pearly and especially the Pembroke students need more options. The same amount of people agree and disagree as to using cereal as a lunch option, which is going to be changed anyways this year. The majority here agree that the variety over the course of the month is good. The majority also agree that they would like to see soup and sandwich more often and less processed options. Also, the majority agree that they would like to know more about the ingredients and the nutritional information, and I'll talk more about that later. The only schools that agree totally with selling snacks in ice cream after lunch are the Pembroke and the middle high school. Pearly does not sell any snacks and totally disagrees and apparently does not want to. Pearly students seem to be satisfied with the portion sizes, but the Pembroke and the middle high school would like to see the portion sizes increased.
So the survey said the same thing, didn't it?
Yes. The majority agree the cost of the lunch is reasonable, but this was actually taken before they found out about the increase, but that is not a lot, so. As for goals for the 2011-12, food service is looking into implementing some of the survey ideas. One, thank you from David, which we had thought about. Additional selections will be offered. We will be replacing the cereal as a breakfast, as a lunch option with a whole grain bagel and a yogurt option. We're going to be having more soups and sandwiches and salads rather than a complete meal. The kids seem to enjoy either the soup and salad or the soup and sandwich better. A larger variety of deli sandwiches will be served all along with the fruits, veggies, and the milks of that day. There will be several changes to the menu items, and based on the guidelines, we will be adding a lot more produce, vegetables, fresh fruit choices, along with the grains in the wheat breads and pastas. We'll be serving the whole grains a minimum of 4 times a week, and continue to offer to the students a choice of 2 fruits a day. These changes are going to be all noted on the menus. Bringing in more healthy options for snacks. I'm looking at this time to see if we qualify for a salad bar grant. I'm not sure we're going to qualify, but if we're not, I'm going to buy them. Or try to. And I'm going to be working with somebody to construct a website that's strictly for food service to communicate with parents a lot of the changes that go on in food service. And one of them being, after the research is done, to find a software that will allow us to share the nutritional information and the ingredients of each product with the parents. I'm still looking to find software that's going to be able to do that for us, but that's what we're looking for the fall. Thank you.
And the guidelines say that you have to serve the whole grain wheat and pasta and bread.
Mm-hmm.
You have to serve it.
Well, they're strongly encouraging that you serve whole grains and wheat products.
Right, but no one's buying. But people aren't buying them. I mean, I can speak for myself. My kids used to buy once in a while. Now they will not buy.
I know, and we did have
But by
a group of food service directors that actually sent somebody to Washington to speak on our behalf about the grains and the pastas, saying that the whole wheat is too strong, the children just aren't happy with them, and they're deciding that they're going to go with like a 60-40 blend and see what happens, and right now that's what I'm looking into. Because whole wheat pasta, the children do not want. It's brown.
It's
Right. So your kids don't buy lunch yet?
Brown.
Do your
I
kids
wish
buy
they
lunch?
would.
Do your
It'd be a
kids
lot
buy
easier.
lunch? They do?
My middle schooler does.
All right, when will you know if you qualify for that salad bar grant?
Probably not for a couple of months.
Yeah. Not long.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Keep my fingers crossed.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Very
Thanks,
helpful.
both of you.
Thank you both. Okay, appreciate it. Yeah.
So we'll go through this in governance. Moving on to the administrative reports. Superintendent Jacobs.
Yes, I'm trying to find, I think I pulled my, Carrie, do you have the strategic plan update? I think I pulled it out
I
of
do,
my.
but I don't have
You have
any
the
color.
colors.
I don't have the
Okay.
colors, so.
Well, particularly for the new folks, Ann and Dave are familiar with the format. So what you have before you is the summary of the goals for this year. The correlation to the 3-year goals are obviously on the far left. The annual goal itself is obviously in that column, and then the specific actions that were taken, and then the evidence of those actions, and then if there are next steps, because the whole goal of this strategic plan is to have it be about continuous improvement. It's not like we're gonna check the box and, okay, it's done. There's always a next step. And we're gonna find that with the next 3-year set of goals, many of these goals are gonna remain the same, but the actions are going to be different because it's all about, moving ahead and moving forward. So obviously the code is clear. If it's green, it means it was done, it was completed. If it's yellow, it means it's in progress, that we've accomplished a lot of the things, but it's something that would require continued effort. Probably be something we would be putting specific actions in the next round. And if it's red, it basically means that it's a goal that needs to be done with much more vim and vigor, and for whatever reason was not done to the level that we would like it to have been done. So we will be in the process of this continuing to write our next round of goals. We'll be evaluating whether or not what's red is still something that really is a priority goal. And obviously, if it is, we're going to need to be much clearer about the concrete actions that need to be done. So if you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them. I know Margaret and Donna and Kristen are here. Kristen it reported on goals, focus area 2. So if there are any very specific questions about that, I know Kristen could help us with that. So, any questions? Yes, Dave?
I have just one question. Can you tell us what the Discipline with Love workshop is? It's on page 4,
Page 4.
under the bullying intervention.
That was it. Pearlie, do you want to speak to that, Margaret?
I'm just not familiar with it. I was curious.
That came from our kindergarten readiness and curriculum committee. One of the things that the committee talked about was the desire to hold workshops for parents. And so when we had thought about what do parents want to know? One of the topics was discipline. But again, not punitively, but how do we discipline with love? So we scheduled a part 1, and as a matter of fact, we had talked about having a part 2, and then, as we all know, the roof collapsed and delayed that plan. So going forward next year, that's one of the things we're going to pick up is, again, how do we deal with discipline in, and also children with maybe ADHD and other disabilities.
So it's a program for parents?
It wasn't really a program, just a workshop on how to set limits, how to be consistent, how to
But it was
deal-
for parents, is that what?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
it was a parent workshop.
Okay, thank you.
I'm hesitant asking these questions because
No,
I've
you
got
ask.
so much to learn here on this. CPI on page 1, annual goals, what does that stand for?
Do all three of you want to come up just in case there are questions that, rather than shouting from the back area? Believe me, we'll make it easy for you, I promise, but. Come on up.
Crisis prevention and intervention, and what that is it's a technique that we are required to provide to our staff members to de-escalate students to the point where they might be, if not de-escalated, we would need to do restraint. So instead of just restraint training, which is a requirement from the state, we provide them with comprehensive training in de-escalation techniques, and so that we're trying to have crisis prevention as well as intervention if we need it. And we have a crisis team at every school, and we have members that are either getting, annually, they are getting certified in this process. And all staff, at least once a year, get an overview. They might not have the full comprehensive training because it's in hours and hours of training, but they'll at least get an overview of techniques to try to avoid having to be hands-on with children.
Yeah. Thank you. The other question that I had was with regards to ELA and math curriculum documents aligning with the new Common Core. Where does is science in here somewhere?
The Common Core is just English Language Arts and mathematics. Very much like
At this point, right?
the Common Core will only be ELA and mathematics. The Common Core initiative was only with AYP indicators. So these NCLB indicators, when they tell us whether we're making adequate yearly progress, is just ELA and math. There is a national effort, and that's what you're alluding to align and revise our science standards. The timeline for that is that next year, the DESE, which is our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, is going to be reviewing the standards, just like they did with ELA and math. And then a year later, the national standards will come in, and they've admitted to us, because I've gone to workshops, that they'll give us a document, and then they'll probably change it. And those will be the standards that are assessed on the MCAS. But that's the presentation that I made on those new frameworks. The ones that I presented are the standards that are being referenced here.
Didn't they have problem with the national standards for example, like history and how, for example, Texas interpreted history and so how are they planning on doing that with science?
Honestly, at the state level, they look at National Council for Science Teachers, and they look at, there are national
NCTM.
standards for councils for math and science and in English at this point. So there are kinds of existing kind of national standards that they use as a framework for that.
Okay.
With history, it's a little more difficult, and that's why you'll see that to this day we still don't have a social studies or history MCAS assessment, because initially it was everything literally in existence. And how can you ask children to have that level of content knowledge, whereas in some of the other subjects it's application. So what you'll notice in science, and similar to what you've seen in math, they've increased mathematical practices. These are things they want the children to model, they want them to understand, they want them to digest. Those are they're more abstract concepts of mathematical thinking. They're applying those kinds of standards to science inquiry. And so you might see more, and this is what they talk to us about, is you might see more inquiry kinds of standards, scientific process kinds of standards in the new science ones than we have that might be currently in the 4 strands of earth science or physical science.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So it's a long process. They have content experts at the state, and they include teachers at that.